Hello, everybody. Thanks always for coming, wherever you are. If you feel like putting your location in the chat, it's always just fun to see where people are zooming in from. We welcome you. I'm just going to speak for a minute because we have a really full program today. We're going to be hearing from two people who are working with Wisconsin Native Vote, Anjali. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce your last name, Bosson, and Gloria Wiggins. And then we have Kim Pope Adams, who has been with us previously in previous years, who's running for the Virginia House of Delegates. And Jim will do his usual sort of review of the state of things. Really, the only thing I was going to refer to just as we open is the fires in California. The fires in California are, I think, even though we've had so many other environmental disasters, they feel like a bit of a turning point to me. The scale, the urban nature, the just vastness. I read an article by Steve Schmidt today on Robert Reich's Substack, and he likens the devastation to what happened to Tokyo in World War II. It's just a massive area that has been completely wiped out. And in the middle of that, of course, the president-to-be is insulting the governor of California, just making fun of Californians, saying that they don't deserve much help because they've brought it on themselves. And it's just really, here we all are. We want to elect Democrats and we want to get out the vote for Democrats, but it just feels so urgent. It is so urgent for us to do whatever we can. Steve Schmidt ends his article by saying, defiance will be required, and more than anything, the faith to maintain it. And that's really what it's about. We have to do everything we can to defy what is coming down to us on Monday and afterwards. And we have to have the faith to maintain the defiance no matter what, because the grassroots of America are really one of the backbones of America these days. And we have to do everything we can. So thanks for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim.
Well, I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself, but I'll go ahead and share my screen anyway. I'm going to pick up a little bit on what you just said as we go through this. I mean, we're all here because we know we're in a pickle, or worse than a pickle, and we want to take action. So 31st Street, we are have swung into action. So here's our priorities. This is basically the same as what we showed last month. First of all, anti-right-wing propaganda, right? So what's going on in terms of the social media, not just Trump, but social media, shows how they capitalize on anything that evokes emotion, and why we have to engage in actually two parts. One is what I call blue media, and I thought we had a really good presentation last month from Kate Bassett. And if you didn't see it, I would recommend that you go into, it's easy to go to our website to resources and find it. It was just fantastic. And I see us raising money basically to fund influencers, just to oversimplify a little bit. And I think we'll get to that relatively soon. At the same time, we ourselves, we are all social media people to one extent, hopefully, or another. And we can do more. And I think that effort as a collective effort, which I'll talk about, I have one slide on that I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. We have Virginia elections. We have the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which is April 1st. And it basically registered with us that we really needed to swing into action on that because it's coming up very soon. That's why it's the next thing we're raising money for, our next fundraiser, because it's coming up soon. And also, if you fund people, they need to put their money to work and get poised and so forth, as we know. And then there will be other kinds of things that will arise. Okay, so now who knows about Brian Tyler Cohen? Okay, so he's probably the preeminent podcaster and social media person on our side. I'm hoping actually he'll be at our fundraiser that we might have in February, just to get a little ahead of ourselves. But this is to make the case that we have some good guys on our side also. They spent decades building what they have, but we have the ability to do some good things as well. And it's the most important thing we can do, in my opinion. And on the other sort of do-it-yourself arena, this is something working with Demcast. It's an organization that helps bring people together to do social media messaging that collectively works through the algorithm or with the algorithm to try to have an impact. And Julie Greenberg launched us on this. It's sort of been reinvigorated, and we have a social media group that's working on this, and we're gonna use this. This is something that if you just do a little bit of social media, we're gonna have training, and we're gonna have onboarding about how to work with Demcast, and it's so easy to like, to love, to share, to comment. All those things make the algorithm work for us. All right, now, and if you'll indulge me, I'd like to think I'm a little bit of there's something called a micro influencer. So I like to think I'm a little bit of maybe a micro. I aspire to be a micro influencer myself. So I had this piece in the Connector, which is the grassroots sort of publication. And if you don't subscribe to it, I would encourage you to do that. Just Google Grassroots Connector. Anyway, I had this piece, half of which is about greedy billionaires. And it turns out that the right wing, they actually have strategic narratives. So one of their strategic narratives is calling out wokeism or America under siege. And I really think that greedy billionaires are screwing you because you have to bring it home. Is a good candidate for us to have a strategic narrative of our own. And it's so true. And it's at the bottom of so much of what's going on. So the other half of the article is on really more on the blue media and how we can work with it. So thanks for listening to that. And okay, switching to Virginia, I showed this slide basically last time, and we're going to, of course, hear from Kim Pope Adams later. This is pretty self-explanatory. We have all these races. We think we've done this before. We have some great candidates. We have some great opportunities. And when we support the legislature, the House of Delegates race, we really believe that it helps the statewide races. And I actually think it's much more better money spent to do that than the marginal money, because I know Abigail Spanberger is going to raise a huge amount of money, and more power to her. All right, and just to give you a sense, here's a map of Virginia, and the purple districts are the ones where you can look at the legend up there. Those are the close districts, and those are the main ones that we're focusing on, mostly challengers. So you can give you a sense that these are the ones we're looking at. At the moment, though, we only have 3. That's because one of our candidates is actually in the legislature and not allowed to take contributions right now. And the other districts just don't have a leading candidate. The primary is not till June, but we really want to get in early with the candidates that we have. And here they are. Three candidates currently on our slate. And we're doing this because we know early money, the earlier the better, actually. At this point, early money is actually very good for these folks. All three of these candidates had very close elections last time, and they've been campaigning ever since. And that's especially true of Kim, who lost by something like 60 votes last time. And she is so dedicated and hardworking, as you will see. However, I shouldn't know however, but also we're for our fundraiser, we're focusing on Wisconsin Supreme Court race. I hope people don't need a lot of justification for that. We participated in the election of Judge Janet Prostasewicz last time, which really was a major turning point. It's had a lot of good things that have happened, including winning 14 legislature races last time. Also, there's a lot at stake going forward, and particularly if we can get fair redistricting for U.S. House races, U.S. House races, which they have not done yet, that really, in theory, ought to get us two additional Democratic seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, think about that. If we picked up two Democratic House seats in the House of Representatives, that would make a lot of difference for democracy. And there was a great candidate, Susan Crawford. She's an outstanding judge, and she's running against an opponent. I don't know all that much about him, but I know enough that I would describe him as super odious, extreme hard right, including that he doesn't think there should be any exceptions for abortion. So just show you the pictures of them. And if you get a chance to hear her speak, I think you'll be quite impressed. So this is kind of like a do or die race for us, partly because it's so important, but also because we want to show that we can win. Keep going back. Sorry about my mouse. All right, so what are we doing in Wisconsin? We're supporting a C3 and a C4. We supported them before. This is the C4, Power to the Polls. Mandela Barnes, you can see in the blue sweatshirt. They seem to have been pretty effective in a year when it was difficult to show effectiveness in Wisconsin and other voters of color. When Wisconsin actually did better than that with that than other states. And you have the advantage that they're in place, they're relating to their communities, and there's a longer term benefit to be supporting organizations like this. But we also have our C3 that we're going to hear from today. The Wisconsin Native Vote, which is tax deductible, C3. And we're going to hear from Anjali and Gloria. They're actually sponsored by another C3, which is pretty common in our business. And again, same principle. They're in their communities. They're working hard, helping these people vote. And they vote for progressive kinds of things when they vote, which is great. So we're having a fundraiser on January 30th. As usual, we really are grateful for you to be co-hosts. My sister Mary is terrific at providing support. We almost do everything for you, give you the tools to do it. It's great to connect with people you haven't talked to maybe in a while. So let's show them that we can win. This is like do or die. And we're going to have donation links in the chat for all three of these things that I've talked about. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anjali.
Also, I just want to say thanks to everybody before we get started for all of your support in the past, particularly in 2024. I know Jim mentioned early money earlier. And you all were many of you were some of our first donors in 2024, and it made a huge programmatic difference. So I just want to say thank you for your past support and for the opportunity for Gloria and I to be here to speak today. And I'll see if I can go ahead and screen share at this point. Okay. Is everybody able to see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm Anjali Basine. I'm the Civic Engagement Director of Wisconsin Conservation Voices. I work closely with our Native Vote program. And here with me today is Gloria Wiggins, who is a regional tribal organizer with the Native Vote program. I wanted just to start by telling you a little bit about the purpose of the Native Vote program, including some of our background in history. So the Native Vote program started over a decade ago, and it really has focused on looking at how can we combat historic disenfranchisement and for tribal voters and Native voters in the state. So we've done that by looking at voter education, voter registration, and we're also actively in the process of looking at some of the systemic barriers in the state and how we might be able to dismantle them through legislation or litigation. As a team, I think everyone on the team is really proud of the work that's been done in the past. Over the last decade, we've seen in every tribal community that we've worked, we've seen an increase in voter participation and voter turnout. In 2023, we worked on the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. It was the first time we worked in a spring election. And I think, one of the things we really saw when we did a little reflection is that we saw huge in the communities where we worked, we saw huge increases in participation. So for example, in Red Cliff, there was an increase in turnout by 130% when we compared to the last comparable election. In Menominee County, which is primarily the Menominee Nation, we saw a 75% increase in turnout. So this year we're getting ready to work, as Jim mentioned, we have a Supreme Court race on April 1st. We know whoever wins that will determine control of the courts. And we know that this has many important implications to tribal communities. Gloria will speak to that more specifically in a little bit. So we're getting ready. We know at the heart of our work, it's, at the heart of it, I think why the program has been able to be really effective is because of deep relationships. We have 4 organizers on the team. Everybody works in the community where they live and holds long time relationships with tribal leaders and community members. And so this year, one of the things we're planning on doing for the spring election, and this is something we've done in the past with tribal nations, we will partner with them to do voter education. So for example, what's on the screen right now is an example of a mail piece. We will, likely work with a number of different northern tribes, and we'll reach out to them. And what we've done in the past typically is we'll design the mail pieces. They usually have somebody from the community on them. The backside has a little bit more information in terms of like, what is the Supreme Court? Why is it important to vote? How do you vote? And then the tribes will mail these out to their tribal members and will underwrite the cost. And we found this to be really important and effective because it's, the tribes are often able to reach people that it may otherwise be hard for us to reach, and they're really good messengers, right? They're known, trusted messengers in the community. So that's one example of how we'll work with the tribes in 2025. Another thing we're planning on doing is we're planning on hosting community education events. In 2023, we hosted 2. This is a photo of one of them. One of our Native Vote manager at the time lived in northern Wisconsin, close to the Bad River tribe and the Red Cliff tribe, and she hosted an event where it was free bingo. She got all the elders there for free bingo for an hour, and then it was a community dinner, and we had a member of a staff attorney from the Native American Rights Fund who spoke and was able to really make the connection between why it's important to vote in the Wisconsin Supreme Court election and how it has impact on tribal nations. and Native concerns. So we're planning on hosting 3 more dinners this year, and partnering again with the tribes and the Native American Rights Fund. There will be a dinner in Bad River, Menominee, and Milwaukee. In addition to the dinners, we're also planning on, we'll engage in some traditional tactics. We'll be tabling, the team will be at powwows and round dances. We've also over the years cultivated a list when we're out at events, and we're talking and connecting with people. So we'll be phone banking to them, talking to them, helping folks really make the connection about why it's important to vote in this race. And we'll also be texting folks. One thing I will say is I think often when the team's talking to folks in the community, we're the only touch they're getting. And we're often getting uh, we'll get really responses from people asking for help. We'll get responses in Ojibwe or in Potawatomi or Menominee languages. And so I think it can often be really fun and a nice way for folks to connect. The other thing that we're planning on doing, and we've done in the past, well, we are right now in the process of interviewing different members of the community about why the Wisconsin Supreme Court is important to them. So we'll run a series of digital ads. I just wanted to show like a 20 or 30-second clip of an ad we've used in the past.
I think that exercising our right to vote is an original form of exercising our individual sovereignty and collective sovereignty as Indigenous communities. And it's our way of voicing, but not only reminding people that we're still here, we're still very much alive, and we're still very much thriving.
As an Indigenous person, I vote because it's critical to our democracy, and it is something that our ancestors were not able to do a short 100 years ago.
And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Gloria now, and she'll talk more specifically about some of her work and the importance of the courts to the tribes.
Bujuga Kenoia, Wabagon Indigo, Jibwemong, Makwa Indude, Mashkazibe Indunjaba, Nimenwendam Biajan, Biajan Nogum, Gagizitagozian Nongum. Hello, my name is Gloria Wiggins. I am a Bad River tribal member. I work part-time for the Wisconsin Native Vote as a Northern Tribal Organizer. In addition to that, I am a full-time tribal lay advocate and guardian ad litem for my tribe. I work with the Bad River tribe, Red Cliff tribe, Lakota Ray tribe, Lac du Flambeau tribe, also known as the Lake Superior Chippewa Indians tribes. I travel to each reservation and do some outreach, providing resources and information regarding the Wisconsin Native Vote organization. In 2024, Wisconsin Native Vote, we tried to increase voting among the younger generations. We believe in the importance of encouraging the younger generations to vote, an attempt to attract the younger generation. Native Vote hosted a 3-on-3 basketball tournament held in Bad River. Everyone in attendance pledged to vote. Engaging with the younger voters and tribal communities is on the rise. They are interested in bettering their communities, and by voting, they know that they have a voice and can make a difference. So this is just a picture of the attendees at our Bad River tribe in our community center, where Native artists did the mural. So we're pretty proud of that. In addition to that, as Jim stated, the Supreme Court race is important. And from a tribal perspective, not only is it important, but fundamental to our tribal values and traditions by protecting the environment, such as wild rice restoration is happening on many of the reservations within Wisconsin. Bad River is the largest wild rice sanctuary on the river. Not only does the tribe livelihood, but depend on clean water, but everyone surrounding Lake Superior's So water is life. Currently, the Bad River Tribe is in litigation with Enbridge, who has been trespassing on the Bad River tribal lands over a decade. With the recent oil spill in Jefferson County on November 11th, 2024, 70,000 gallons of oil was spilled. So it is not a matter of if the Bad River has an oil spill, but rather when. Enbridge is not an honest company and puts profits over people. So the Supreme Court will likely make decisions regarding the appeal that we have with Enbridge. So this is very important for many tribes in Wisconsin to get Enbridge out and protect our natural resources. Miigwech Bizendawyeg, thank you all for listening, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for being here. We are going to have some questions for you, but we're going to save the questions until after our next speaker. So I'm hoping you can stay with us for a little while because there are a few questions in the chat. Anybody else who would like to put questions in the chat, please do so, and we'll get to them pretty soon. So Kimberly Pope Adams from Virginia, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And good afternoon to everyone. Oh, I see familiar faces, and that's wonderful. Good afternoon. I am Kimberly Pope Adams, the Democratic candidate for Virginia House of Delegates, 82nd District. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone on this call, thank 31st Street. Your support the last time I ran was just immeasurable. I was able to actually introduce different aspects to my campaign strategy because of you. We did not have radio ads before you. So if you want to know whether there was something tangible as a result of your efforts, I can tell you that there was literally a component of our campaign that did not exist without you. So again, I want to thank you all so much for what you did last time. As Jim said, I haven't stopped working. I haven't stopped working. Just on a personal note, I'm the youngest of three. I'm a union daughter. My daddy was a union worker. My mom was a school crossing guard. And I grew up in a very blue collar household, went to public schools, graduated high school, fortunately with honors, and received a partial scholarship to Virginia Tech. After I received my bachelor's in accounting and information systems from Virginia Tech, I got married, had a baby, bought a house, got divorced, and have been a single mom for over a decade. But it showed me so much. It taught me so much about resilience. It taught me so much about hard work. And to have my personal life experiences along with the way my union daddy raised me, it I believe has caused me to become quite the workaholic. But in this case, it is necessary because in Virginia, yes, currently we have a 1-seat majority, but I can tell you 1-seat majority is not enough in Virginia. There are constitutional amendments that are in play. And for those of you who may not be familiar, the constitutional amendment process in Virginia is ridiculous, for lack of a better term. The General Assembly votes on it. There has to be a House of Delegates election in between, and then the General Assembly votes on it a second time, and then it can go to the people as a ballot referendum. So while the Virginia General Assembly will vote on 3 constitutional amendments this session that is about to begin, there is this November election in between. So when people ask, why am I running? And it's not cliche to say representation matters. There have to be people, there must be people in the room who represent the constituents who they are elected to serve. And while I see people like me in the community all the time, I've never seen anyone like me actually represent my district. And I believe that has to change. So I have been hard at work. It was 53 votes that I fell short by in 2023. It went to a recount. It was initially 78, and the recount brought it down to 53 votes. But I have been committed since that recount concluded to making sure my community understands that every vote indeed does count. I know people may not believe it, but I am a walking example that every single vote counts. So I am here, I am running again. Fortunately, at this point, it does not appear I have a primary. I am currently collecting petition signatures so that I can qualify for the ballot. And even in the cold and the snow, I am knocking doors already. I actually started knocking doors on New Year's Day. And earlier today, before joining this call, I actually was knocking doors and got up one sheet of petition signatures right before joining this call at 4 o'clock. So I just wanted to again thank you all so much. I will be on for the entire time for Q&As. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I did not go into specific party platform topics or my own platform, but my website is my name, KimberlyPopeAdams.com. So my issues and my stance is out there, and again, I will be on the call for the remainder. Gladly, willing to answer the Q&A. And again, I just want to thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you very much. We are thrilled to have you back, and we're thrilled that you're running again. I cannot believe it was 53 votes. We were talking about canvassing earlier in our new member orientation and, the effectiveness of canvassing. And really, if you think about, we talk to many more than 53 people every time we canvass. And if we can just get 53 people over the course of the campaign, maybe we can get you into office. Okay, before we open it to questions, I'm just going to turn it over to Mary for a brief moment.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Shelton Pence, and I want to show you a card that got me through 2017 through 2021, and it's faded now. It says, "Action is the antithesis of anxiety." And what was true during the first term of you-know-who is also going to be true during the second term of you-know-who. And so I want to ask you to consider 3 specific things. And Adele Dari's going to put these links in the chat one more time. The first is to contribute to our Virginia House of Delegates slate. And Kimberly Pope Adams, I was so inspired by your biography and your, gumption is kind of an old-fashioned word, but I'm going to use it anyhow. You are just you were a super impressive candidate in 2023, and you continue to be today. So I want to urge everyone who thinks that the Virginia legislature races are important to contribute to the Virginia slate. And secondly, I want to lift up these 2 groups. 31st Street's strategy is we don't give money to the marquee candidates who are going to get millions and millions of dollars anyway. We contribute to groups whose work complements that of the campaign. And Jim told you why electing Susan Crawford on April 1st is so important. But I'm also inspired by the Native American voices, the Native American issues that we've heard briefly about today, and by the work of Mandela Barnes' work in inner city areas. So I'd like to ask you to contribute to those 2 groups. And finally, because I am the chair of the fundraising team, I'd like to ask you to co-host our fundraiser, which is January 30th. And I'm going to put my email address in the chat one more time. I can't talk and type at the same time, so I don't want to distract myself. But if you will just send me an email and say, yes, I'll co-host. If you've done it before, you know how easy it is. if you haven't done it before, I think of it as letting people in my network know something that they can do to be effective and to address their own anxiety about this place in which we find ourselves on, what is it, January 11th, 2021. So take action to address your own anxiety in one or all of the ways I've just laid out. And I just want to say thank you very much for all you have done and all you will do.
Thank you, Mary. So we're opening it to questions. Here is the first one for Gloria or Anjali. How many Native voters are there? How do the percentages translate into numbers of votes?
I can take that one. And Gloria, please feel free to jump in if you have anything to add. We estimate there's about 70,000 eligible Native voters in Wisconsin. In terms of, we can often, for specific tribes or areas, we can measure impact. One of the challenges, I think with, Native programs across the country is data. And so, for example, in Milwaukee, we know Milwaukee has one of the largest concentrations of natives in the state, but they're not necessarily so concentrated that they're in a census block count where you can see the shift in turnout. And so we do our best to try and measure, but I don't have an exact number for you in terms of turnout.
Thank you. Another question for one of you from Wisconsin. What is the connection between the Wisconsin Conservation Resources and Wisconsin Native Vote? Is there a connection? What is it?
Yeah, so Wisconsin Conservation Voices is our 50. So Wisconsin Conservation Voices is a 501c3, and Native Vote is a program of Wisconsin Conservation Voices. We have the Native Vote team that's part of Wisconsin Conservation Voices, and we also have some other organizers on staff as well. And then we do have a sister organization called Wisconsin Conservation Voters, which is a 501c4. So
Okay.
we're part of Wisconsin Conservation Voices. We're one of the programs.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Another question for you both. What are some of the obstacles to voter registration that you have been trying to overcome?
Yeah,
I'll
there's
take
a
this one.
lot. Gloria, do you want to take this one?
Well, I'll take one of the issues. The main issue,
Okay.
one of the main issues is the addresses. The firehouse numbers on the reservations aren't really on file with the voting commissioner list. So we're trying to get that updated correctly to make sure that all of the tribal members that go to try and vote are able to have their addresses on file and not be turned away and due to address not on file or needing information to prove that that is their address.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe Gloria, is it okay if I maybe just some more context for that? Gloria's exactly right. And one thing that might be helpful, in 2018, we ran a legal observer program doing election protection at Native polling locations, and Natives unfortunately were turned away from voting at twice the rate as non-Native voters in the state. And a lot of that comes back to what Gloria was saying in terms of the way our voter registration laws are written. If you're a Native voter, often your address doesn't comply with the way the voter registration laws are written, or it just makes it more complicated to register, or the way the database systems are created. There's barriers there. And then I think there's just other challenges on election day this year in 2024. We had a number of Native voters all over the state who would take their tribal IDs. It's legal to be able to vote with your tribal ID and register to vote. They'd be turned away for that. I know, Gloria, I don't know if you want to speak anymore I know you had some in your own community experiences with people having to re-register to vote, or I don't know if you want to.
Just when we canvassing, I filled out, helped tribal members fill out the registration forms and then gave them to a local clerk to get them entered into the system. Well, at the time of voting, it was we became aware that the county clerk didn't accept the registration voter forms because they didn't come from a certified clerk. It was like handed, passed down, but that was one of our issues that we had.
That's enraging. Well, thank you for persisting. A couple questions for Kim. What are the Virginia constitutional amendments? And the other curious question is just what kind of reactions are you getting from the people that you're knocking doors on in January?
Well, first, there are 3 constitutional amendments right now. The first is abortion rights, which obviously after the Dobbs decision, we know now needs to be enshrined in our state constitution. The second is marriage equality. And even though we know on the federal level we should have those protections, I believe the Dobbs decision taught us that we need to make sure that even at a state level, that we have certain rights enshrined in our Constitution. So the second is marriage equality. And the third constitutional amendment is automatic restoration of voting rights for felons after they've been released from incarceration. Currently in Virginia, convicted felons have to petition the governor individually for the restoration of their voting rights. And our governor, Glenn Youngkin, has been quite opaque when it comes to what the process is and how many he grants. And it's just gotten very frustrating to be on doors. And that actually will go to the next question. I've been on doors, and there have been convicted felons who have told me on the doorstep, I've asked the governor for my voting rights back and I haven't heard back. And it's frustrating for me because I don't have an answer. I don't have a response because of the lack of transparency in his office. But first and foremost, when I knock on someone's door in January, their first response is, oh my goodness, there are candidates who have never knocked on my door, let alone this early in the cycle. And what they're telling me is that what the voters are asking for are not new issues. The voters are asking for the very things that Democrats have been fighting for all along, but we as Democrats sometimes have a very hard time bragging on ourselves and we have a very hard time bragging on our successes. So when I hear people talk about wanting a living wage, wanting, paid time off, with this inclement weather, and I live in a place called Dinwiddie County, Virginia. We received 5 inches of snow this weekend, which for us is a lot of snow. And if you work a job where you don't have paid time off, but you were unable to make it in, I mean, that has a real impact on your budget. So again, those types of economic issues. I don't hear questions about the macro economy. I hear individual specific questions about people's livelihood. And I appreciate that because I know that when it is time for me to introduce legislation, I know exactly what their needs or concerns are. People are also very concerned about abortion rights, about abortion access, because Virginia is the last safe haven in the South. I mean, people are coming up from Georgia, up from Florida, over from Tennessee, over from Kentucky, up from North Carolina, just to receive the care that they could get at home, a couple of years ago. So yes, so those are just a couple of examples of what I'm hearing, once they get over the shock of snow boots and a North Face coat ringing their doorbell in January saying I'm running in November.
That is great. That was really helpful. It's very inspiring to think of you out there in your snow boots. Here's another question for you, Kim. Are you making any changes in the strategy of your campaign based on the 2024 election and the analysis that has been coming afterwards?
Yes, I have. And even before the 24 election, after my loss in 23, I had already begun rethinking how to do things differently. One thing I will note for you all is that Kamala Harris won my House district. in November, even though Virginia had a smaller margin than Joe Biden had. But I am so excited to know that despite perhaps some lower turnout in certain areas, she still won the district. And that is inspiring and that is motivating. One thing for me that I am absolutely going to focus on and make sure that my team presses the issue with the party is that we have a database. We have a database of all of the voter records. And in that database, in Vote Builder, we also have, I guess you could say, certain analytics, certain scores that are granted to voters. Their likelihood to vote, their turnout score, their most likely their race and their ethnicity. And I believe there's a lot of room for improvement in those in what the algorithms are claiming to be true. The only way to know is to show up at someone's door. So while I appreciate the database and I appreciate the effort that's put into determining a candidate's universe, what we call our universe, the doors that we will knock on, I also have discovered that you can't just rely on the list of names that is provided to you as a candidate. If they are registered to vote, I need to go see them. If they are registered to vote in my community, I need to find a way to canvass that door. Even if it seems unlikely that they will vote, perhaps that unlikeliness is because they've never been approached. And perhaps their hesitance is because no one has ever showed up. So what I am doing differently is not just relying on the quote unquote experts who tell me whose doors I should be knocking on. And that's why I'm starting so early, because if you are registered to vote and I can see that you have been engaged, I'm coming to your door and I'm going to ask you what you need.
That sounds good. That sounds like a good strategy. I mean, getting to know people one-on-one and I think makes a huge difference. All of us who have canvassed have had the experience here and there of knocking on a door with people looking at us in wonder saying, nobody's ever knocked on my door before. Like, this is great. So yeah, canvassing can do that for you. It's wonderful. This is a general question that I'm going to direct to Jim that just came earlier. Are we doing anything to help get Ben Wickler to be the DNC chair? I know there are many answers to that, but I'm going to let you take that, Jim.
So I think this might have come from Barbara Woodall, and I take it that means that she would like for us to. So if that's the case, then the answer is yes. Swing Blue Alliance has amassed a long list of organizations and leaders. I think it's like 170 that signed a letter. I could make it available to you if you like. And they've promoted in social media. I believe they have plans to try to get some press coverage of it as well. So I think we're doing our part on that. I also have a list, by the way, if anybody wants it, of all the, whatever it is, 448 DNC voting people. If I looked at it, I couldn't see anybody that I knew to lobby, but if somebody wants to contact me and wants to have a look at it, I can send you the link over.
Okay. Any other questions? You can put it in the chat or you can wave at me. Looking around. Anybody want to make a comment?
I'll make a comment, which is on Kimberly's point about knocking doors. We did a lot of what we called knock every door canvassing in 2024 in areas where there were low information, low income voters and so forth, apartments and so forth. And we thought it was very, very successful. We were able to do three things. We were able to do voter registration. We were able to do persuasion, and we're also able to do turnout to provide people to do. And I know there's some places in Petersburg and Dinwiddie where somebody could do that over.
Thanks. Did I see anybody raising their hand? Just looking around.
Yes, Jim McBride has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Well, I see Jeff waving too. Why don't we go to Jeff and then Jim? And you just have to unmute.
I'm working on it. Okay. Yeah, I was curious, maybe I'm out of date on this. There's the in North Carolina, the election, I don't know the names, a Democratic candidate won narrowly. And then there's an effort to somehow magically subtract votes from his or her. I think it's a her, but I'm not sure. I was just curious, an update on that, and if there's anything we can do to be helpful in that regard.
Well, the only thing, the bottom line, the only way to be helpful really is to contribute money to Allison Riggs for her legal. She's our candidate, which I have done. I mean, it's too complicated to kind of explain, but they are challenging 60,000 votes. At our side, we're not challenging any votes because we don't think we should challenge votes. So they've handpicked votes they think that they can challenge. The North Carolina Supreme Court, absent Allison Riggs, who's actually on the Supreme Court, but has taken herself off of it because of conflict of interest, has agreed to hear the case. The election board has denied it. Fortunately, one of the Republicans was opposed to even hearing the case. So it's not clear that the forces of evil will prevail even in the North Carolina Supreme Court. And then I think if they do, I think it'll be an appeal to the federal court after that. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And Jim, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just wanted to comment on Jim was talking about the DNC race. I filed to run for DNC Vice Chair of Civic Engagement. So I have the entire DNC member list. It's not, I don't have everybody's email and phone number, but I have a lot. Some people keep their information private, but I have pretty much every name. I might be able to, I've already sent a couple emails to them, and I could probably send an email to just forward the letter if you guys aren't able to communicate the DNC members. And I'd be happy to, answer any questions about the process. I put in my link tree that I create, Blue Victory War Room. I put in a bunch of links to, there was a DNC forum yesterday, and there's rules about how the election is run and stuff. I mean, I can put that link tree in the chat, and you could take a look at the websites of the candidates and things.
Okay, that would be great. And maybe if you could put your email in the chat, if anybody wants to reach out to you for more information, they can just email you, but thank you. Okay, Ann Bailey?
I just wanted to ask, do you have any sense of what Ben Weckler's chances are of winning?
I can't answer that. Does anybody else have an answer?
Jim McBride, would you know by any chance?
I think Ken Martin is the strong favorite. He is the president of the state chairs, and he's the Minnesota chair. And I don't know as much about him as a state chair, but he has a lot of respect among other state chairs. He's got a lot of endorsements. Jane Kleb, who is from Nebraska, who wrote a book called Harvest the Vote. You might have heard of it. She has endorsed him. So I would say that, Ben might be the best candidate, but I'm not, like, Ken Martin came and canvassed for us in Northern Virginia, at least a couple of shifts last weekend. So I think I talked to him, and he's a nice guy. I mean, he seems like a good guy. He said his number one, his number one identity is as an organizer. He kind of learned from Paul Wellstone 20 years ago or so, he's got a pretty good track record. But yeah, Ben, I can tell Ben definitely, he seems, I hear a little bit more from Ben, a little bit more specific programs that they do in Wisconsin that are very good. So So I can understand why people support Ben, but you know, Ken is good too. I mean, all the candidates are saying a lot of good things. I mean, pretty much all of them. Even Martin O'Malley, you know, like they're all saying good things. It seemed like they have some ideas that are good. So, but you can see all their websites when I share it. Thanks.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Feel like I have to join in a little just to say that, you know, there's so many political agendas or whatever. It's very hard to know who's going to vote for one. I think the chair from North Carolina just endorsed Ben, but I think one thing about Ben is I do think he probably has some appreciation for grassroots groups. You know, the way they operate in Wisconsin is kind of in concert with those kinds of groups. And I also feel like he would have the ability to raise money, unfortunately, more so than some of the other candidates. So obviously it needs to be professionalized. You know, that's what the Democratic Party needs. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to take time. Over.
He's really established a winning model
Mhm,
for Democrats to follow.
mhm,
He's pioneered it, it seems to me.
mhm.
But those narrow victories he's pulled off on the Wisconsin Supreme Court and
Mhm.
state races
Yes, we are
is
fans.
my indie. You know, I wish we could do it other states.
Yeah, yeah.
Can somebody say who are the people that do the voting for the DNC chair? What type of people?
Somebody answered that. 448 DNC members, most are elected by state convention, 75 were nominated by the chair. Not sure if that answers your question. but-
They're office holders, you know, senators and so forth. They're also, every state has a certain number of Democratic committee people. It's actually kind of a, you know, a grab bag of a lot of things. I looked at Maryland and Virginia. I'd never heard of any of them.
But there was no election 4 years ago, right? Just Joe Biden just appointed Jamie Harris, and that was it, right? Or Harrison.
Well, it's the kind of thing that in the past the candidate has expressed a preference and then the delegates go along.
So we are at 5 o'clock. So we're going to wind up our formal program. Thank you very, very much to Gloria and Anjali, Kimberly. We really appreciate your time. We know that you're very, very busy. And thanks so much for all the work that you're doing. We're very glad to be able to help you as much as we can. So thanks for joining us. Thank you to everybody who came today. Some of us will stick around for a few minutes. If anybody wants to just schmooze for a few minutes, feel free to stay on. But right now is the end of our formal meeting. Hope to see you at the fundraiser
Thank
on
you.
the so long.
Thank you
Thank
again,
you.
everyone.
I just want to respond to Scott Radloff's message. Scott, we're glad you came and got caught up and are with us at this important time.
Judy,
Judy.
What can you tell us a little bit more about Power to the Polls? I just went to their website. They don't speak directly of the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. Are they focusing on this? I'm thinking they will reach quite a broad swath of voters. They have a lot of partners that are legitimate. So what do you know about that specifically?
you know, I don't actually have a detailed game plan of what they're planning. I just know they have an ongoing presence in the community. I was on I guess it was in December. They sort of did a follow-up meeting and talked about what they'd done. And actually Ben Wickler was on there and talked very highly of their work.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a briefing I can send you, Judy, of what they feel like they accomplished in 2024.
Okay.
It's going to be, I mean, what they're telling me is going to be canvassing, digital, phoning, it's basically going to be their turnout operation.
But is this April 1 election just for the Supreme Court of Wisconsin? In other words, it's kind of out in left field compared to a November election, for
Yeah,
example.
I mean, there may be some other local kinds of mayoral races and stuff. I think there are.
Mhm.
The only one we're really focusing on. And this is, it's kind of an oddity in our system, obviously. But, the flip side is that when you focus on something like that, that's a typically low turnout election, that's where your efforts have the most impact.
Well, and you mentioned how important this is for redistricting, for honest redistricting. I think that sounds really an important thing to support. I'm just, wondering about.
Well, again, to pick up on Mary's point in a way, she's got her own campaign. She's raised $2 million. She's going to do the
Okay.
TV and all this kind of stuff.
Okay.
I feel like that's well funded.
Okay.
Try to find something else to supplement it, that'll, augment, if you will, that effort.
But
Okay.
Jim, isn't it correct to say that they're focusing on urban voters and particularly urban minority voters?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so, yeah.
That's what it looks like, that the Black Votes Matter, but also AFL-CIO and so on. It's just about this race, and not to take away anything from the Native Americans, the group that we heard about, but it seems like a focused group on this that has the savvy to know the importance of this election.
Well, I think, we selected both of them because we felt like they had something to add. The Native American vote is relatively small, but when they turn out, they make a big, they vote progressive, I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's that net progressive vote that makes a lot of difference.
Yeah. I guess my concern is this sort of under the radar screen kind of election for those who are not aware how important redistricting is and how important our state Supreme Courts are.
Well, I can tell you, people in Wisconsin, it's not under the radar.
Okay. Okay.
And I think it'll get a lot of attention. Actually,
Okay.
I think it's people have been a little bit of sort of stupefied by for want of a better word, by the November election, and I think it's taking a while to get people mobilized. I mean, again, this is our comparative advantage. We're nimble. We're mobilizing, right?
Exactly. And do you know yet who you will be supporting at the fundraiser, the 30th? Or
those two organizations, yes.
got it. Okay. Okay, that sounds great. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Barbara Woodall. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, well, I just want to respond quickly. It's the Gloria who was the tribal member who spoke, mentioned a case about the Bad River, and that case could mobilize Native. I was, as an attorney, I represented tribes, and if there is a case, they know about the case and would turn out for that. And so that I think if they're focusing on that, that could really help for this election, if they're connecting that with the Supreme Court election. What I had raised my hand about is, Jim, I saw you yesterday at the Swing Blue Alliance Zoom, and it looked to me like they were having working groups on issues that are our concerns also, like the countering disinformation and supporting blue media. Are we coordinating with that at all?
Totally.
How are we doing that?
So, well, there's a person called, she was on, I think, what's her name? Lily Allen.
Yes.
Who's very good on social media stuff. And when I said we were going to have training and onboarding, we're going to hitch onto their training and on.
Good. That's what I just didn't want us to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know you're very active on social media, Barbara. So we're going to have high expectations of you to kind of help us weigh in on this part of it.
Facebook only.
Okay.
Well, Barbara, you say Facebook only, but I have just signed up for Instagram. Now, ask me if I know what to do on Instagram, and the answer is no. But the point is, I took that first step. I know Lisa's just signed up for Blue Sky, so
I'm tiptoeing toward blue sky. That's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
I did
so-
that this morning, Barbara, and I was totally intimidated and I
that's
was
what
like,
I'm afraid
"How
of.
do I do this?" But you know what? It took me like 20 minutes and now I've posted some things and I have like 10 followers and it's really not hard.
You,
So
oh,
go for it.
I'll check
Well,
that out. But I keep up with my cousins on Facebook. So as much as I hate Facebook, it's important.
Two things. The Demcast people think Facebook is important. So partly because we want to influence the purple audience and the blue, but we also want to influence the blue audience because we want your cousins to do something too, right? Or to send something on to something that they know. The other thing is I have a very nice training on Blue Sky that Demcast put together, which I
Oh,
would send to you and
that'd be
anybody else that asks me, but I'll make a note to send it to you.
one thing I do on Facebook is I have a lot of people who are in like red areas and stuff, and I jump onto the comments in their sections and figure I'm getting read by people who would not ordinarily be exposed to my point of view, and I'm trying to do it in a nice way. So I figure that is a way to get voice out.
So I think part of the trick though is to be proactive and have our messaging.
I
The
do
way
that too.
The way
Yeah.
the algorithms work, if you comment on some crazy thing that somebody says, that actually promotes other people seeing it. So you just kind of need to be careful about that.
But that's good. Generally, I will remember that. Thank you.
So Ann Common, can you explain your question you're asking me in the chat? I'm not quite under this. When you say Demcast thing, what do you mean?
The Blue Sky training, I assume everybody, if you make it easily available to people, more people will probably do it. And also
Okay,
Field
so
6 has Wednesday afternoon sessions where they help people sign up.
So Lisa, we could put it in the newsletter.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have the next newsletter is going to focus on social media. I hope.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
Great.
But I'll send it to you directly anyway, Barbara, and Ann, if you want it.
Okay. All right. I think we're gonna call it a day. Thanks so
Yeah.
much. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Lovely to
Thank you.
see all you leaders, and thank you so much.